You still can't find a date? The words slithered through the air like poison. My stepmother's syrupy voice cut through the room of pastel streamers, diaper cakes, and overpriced baby shower favors.
She didn't even look at me when she said it.
Just casually sipped her mimosa and fixed a pacifier-shaped brooch on her blouse. Then she added, with that fake smile and razor-sharp tone that only a lifelong pretender could perfect, "Poor Madison. Still single at 32. Just a failure, huh?" Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Laughter erupted, soft at first, then louder, like a slow-building train wreck of judgment. My sister, already glowing from all the attention, placed a manicured hand over her bump and let out a dramatic giggle. Her friends followed suit, nudging one another and whispering behind plastic cups. I stood there, in a blue silk blouse I'd saved up 2 weeks to buy, gripping the gift I brought like it could somehow shield me from the humiliation. It was a handmade scrapbook, every page filled with childhood photos of us, of Emma and me. I had even stayed up until 2 a.m. last night pasting in a poem about sisterhood. Now it felt like a punchline in my hands. "Don't worry, Mads," Emma said sweetly, playing up the sarcasm. "There's always the Forever Alone aisle at Target. Comes with a coupon for frozen dinners and cat food." I forced a smile. My jaw felt like concrete. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just looked at my father for a trace of defense. Nothing. He sat back in his chair with his arms folded, eyes glued to the backyard, pretending he hadn't heard a thing. His silence stung worse than their mockery. "Let's open the gifts," someone chirped. And just like that, the attack on me ended. They returned to the glittery pile of bows and ribbons like I didn't exist. I turned toward the front window, blinking back the burn behind my eyes, trying to breathe through the tightness in my throat. The baby shower music buzzed behind me, but I barely heard it. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. And then, a low, thunderous engine purred outside. It wasn't just any car. Heads turned. Phones lifted. Through the large bay window, a sleek black Lamborghini Huracan with red accents slowed to a stop, right in front of the house. The roar of its arrival hushed the room. People rose from their seats like spectators at a magic show. The passenger door opened. My name echoed loud and clear. "Madison. Babe, sorry I'm late." And there he was. 6 feet 3 inches, broad-shouldered, sunglasses tucked into his jacket collar, wearing a charcoal gray tailored suit. Casual confidence in every step. That smile, charming, magnetic, terrifyingly calm. Every breath in the room vanished. He came right toward me, ignoring every other face. I could feel Emma's nails gripping the armrest. I could feel my stepmother's drink lowering in slow motion. I could feel every eye burning holes through me. And then he kissed me, gently, deliberately, like he didn't care if the world watched.
Because he wanted them to.
"Sorry, I had to take a call with the London office," he said casually, sliding his arm around my waist. "You ready to go, Mrs. Carter?" Mrs. Carter. The name slapped the air like a courtroom gavel. My stepmother's mouth fell open, then snapped shut. My sister looked like she'd swallowed her own baby shower cupcakes whole. You're married?" Someone gasped from behind a gift tower. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He answered for me, chuckling under his breath like the secret had finally been fun to reveal. "We don't make a big fuss about it. Maddie likes things simple," he said smoothly. "I just figured I'd swing by and pick up my wife. Hope that's all right." There was silence. A thick, syrupy silence. Until my father finally stood. "Wait. Carter, as in Ethan Carter?" My husband offered a hand. "That's me." My dad went pale. Everyone knew the name. Not just for the cars, or the money, or the penthouses in 3 cities, but for the scandal, the revenge empire. The billionaire tech tycoon who'd built his fortune after being humiliated and ousted by his own family's business. And I was his wife. The girl they had laughed at, mocked, called a failure. Now the one who walked hand in hand with the man they'd only ever read about in headlines. I turned back once at the door. Their faces. Frozen. Stunned.
Crushed.
And not because I had suddenly become someone worth noticing, but because I had always been. They just never bothered to see it. Until now. The ride from my sister's house was dead silent. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been said, without a single word. I sat in the buttery leather seat of the Lamborghini, staring out the window as the suburban pastel of party balloons and folding chairs blurred behind us. My hands were still trembling, but not from shame anymore. From release. From finally breaking free of their chokehold. Ethan glanced over at me. "You alright?" I let out a half laugh, shaking my head. "They called me a failure, Ethan. A failure." He reached across the center console and took my hand. "You were never a failure. You were just surrounded by people too small to understand you." I closed my eyes. His touch grounded me, but the memories came crashing harder now. Because this wasn't the first time they'd tore me down. This had been years in the making. The first sting came at 24 when I lost my marketing job. Dad called me dramatic. My stepmother offered me a brochure for a dental assistant course, said, "At least it's stable." My sister laughed and told me I should just marry rich. And when I tried to launch my own freelance design studio, they mocked it, called it cute. I remembered the way Emma once said, "Oh, Maddie's working from home now. That's code for unemployed, right?" I fought. I struggled. I sacrificed everything just to prove I could stand. But to them, it was never enough. To them, I was always just the leftover child. The mistake. The one who didn't fit into their image of perfection. Ethan pulled us into the underground garage of our high-rise downtown. The contrast couldn't have been more surreal. Upstairs was a penthouse with skyline views, a marble kitchen I still barely believed I cooked in, and a walk-in closet that made my old one-bedroom apartment seem like a storage locker. As we stepped out of the car, I finally broke the silence. "They're going to talk."
"They already were," he said.
"But now they'll shut up." I turned to him at the elevator. "Why didn't we tell anyone?" He looked at me, serious. "Because you deserve to walk back into that house on your own terms. And today you did." I couldn't speak. The doors opened. We entered the penthouse. The city stretched endlessly beneath us. And yet, all I could think about was how small they looked from here. How powerless they were now. How none of their words could touch me anymore. But then, my phone buzzed. A text. "Dad, come to dinner tomorrow night. We need to talk." And below that, "Emma, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Please call me." I let the phone fall onto the granite countertop. Ethan stood behind me, slipping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "I'm thinking," I whispered. "They want something. They always did." I turned to him. "What if I say yes? What if I go tomorrow?" He kissed the side of my head. "Then go. Just don't go looking for their love, Madison." I looked at him, heart thudding. "Then why would I go?" He smiled. "To show them what they lost." That night I didn't cry. Not out of bitterness. But because I realized something deeply, painfully clear. All those years I spent chasing their approval meant I was handing them the power to break me. Not anymore. They laughed at me, mocked me, dismissed me. Tomorrow, they'd finally learn what it feels like to choke on their own pride. And I wasn't going there to argue. I was going to walk in, smile politely, and watch it all burn from the inside out. The air outside my father's house smelled like overwatered roses and desperation. Same suburban neighborhood. Same polished driveway. Same smug porch light that had once flickered on late at night when I came home from college, unannounced, and my stepmother pretended not to see me dragging in a suitcase alone. But tonight, the flicker wasn't just light. It was fear. Dad stood at the front door as I approached. He looked like he hadn't slept. Still in his golf slacks, but his collar was wrinkled. His tie undone. For once, he didn't look composed. For once, I had the upper hand. "Madison," he said, clearing his throat like the word burned. I smiled softly. Dad. His eyes darted toward the curb, probably half expecting Ethan to walk me up. But I'd told Ethan to wait. This part I needed to do alone. We stepped into the dining room. Polished oak table. Fake hydrangeas in the same cracked vase from my high school graduation dinner. Same stiff chairs. Same uneven chandelier. Only now everything looked smaller. Emma sat at the table. No makeup. Her hair pulled into a lazy bun. No friends, no fans, no audience. Just her. And next to her, my stepmother, arms folded, lips pursed, eyes already rolling. Some things never change. Others? We're about to. Let's sit, my father said. I took the seat at the head of the table. No one said a word.
Not even my stepmother protested.
Progress. I wanted to clear a few things, Dad began. About today. I crossed one leg over the other, still calm. Of course. Let's. Emma leaned forward, hands clasped. I'm sorry, she blurted. I didn't know. I didn't mean for it to go that far, what I said. I was just joking. We didn't think. No. I cut in smoothly. You didn't think. That's the problem.
Silence.
She bit her lip, blinking fast.
Good.
Let it sink in. I never told you about Ethan. I continued, because I wanted a quiet life. We married privately. We didn't want to turn our relationship into some family circus. And yet, my stepmother muttered under her breath, you showed up with him like some movie in trance. I turned to her, voice level.
No.
I showed up because your mockery crossed a line. Again. Dad shifted. Madison, no one meant harm. But you have to admit, showing up like that, in that car in front of everyone. In front of people who laughed at me? He froze. Emma looked away. I reached into my bag and slid a small stack of papers onto the table. This is the deed, I said quietly, to your lake house. Their heads snapped toward it. What? Dad whispered. I nodded. You mortgaged it 2 years ago. Emma needed cash for her business. You were behind on the payments. Ethan's company bought the debt. Emma gasped. You bought our lake house loan?
Yes.
It was auctioned last month. Legally, it belongs to us now. My stepmother's face drained of color. You can't do that. I didn't do anything, I replied, voice flat. I was just there when your carelessness caught up with you. Emma clutched the edge of the table. You knew and said nothing. I stared directly at her, exactly like you did every time they laughed at me. Dad leaned forward. What do you want, Madison? I smiled. Nothing. His face contorted. Nothing. I stood, slow and deliberate. I came here to tell you, I don't need you to love me. I don't need your approval. I'm not the girl begging at this table anymore. Emma's lip trembled. So, you're kicking us out of the lake house? No, I said, picking up my bag. You can stay. Ethan's transferring it into a trust. For your baby. She stared at me, stunned. But why? She whispered. Why would you still help me? I turned to the door, pausing just long enough to look her in the eye. Because I learned something you never did. What? That success without kindness is just a louder form of revenge. And with that, I left. But not without hearing the sound I never thought I'd hear in that house again. Not judgment, not laughter, but silence. Real silence. The kind that came only when truth finally entered the room. The next morning, I woke to 5 missed calls from Emma. 3 from Dad. 1 from a number I didn't recognize, probably my stepmother using someone else's phone now that I'd stopped answering hers. Ethan was already dressed, sipping his black coffee in the kitchen, scrolling through his tablet like he hadn't just helped me change the power balance of my entire childhood in one evening. They're calling again, he asked, not even looking up.
Yeah. Begging, I think.
He raised an eyebrow. Or blaming. I nodded. Maybe both. He set the tablet down and walked over, placing the coffee on the counter beside me. So, what now? I go to work, I said simply. Like always. Because I had kept working. While they laughed, I built something. My design studio, quiet under the radar, had grown steadily. Clients across cities. Word of mouth. I didn't need to flash it around to prove it. Ethan smirked. Spoken like a CEO. Just before I grabbed my keys, my phone buzzed again. One message. From Dad. You were right. About all of it. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a second. Then deleted the message. I didn't need his apology anymore. At the office, my assistant, Kara, looked up and smiled wide. You're trending. What? She spun her screen toward me. Social media exploding. A blurry video from the baby shower had gone viral. The Lamborghini. Ethan calling me his wife. The shocked gasps in the background. Captions like, real-life plot twist. They laughed at her. Then this happened. I groaned. Perfect. Kara grinned. You're a hero to every woman who's ever been underestimated. I didn't feel like a hero, but I did feel seen. Around noon, a delivery arrived. Dozens of white lilies and a simple card. For the woman who made silence louder than a mic drop. I smiled. He always knew what to say, without needing to say too much. By evening, I stood at the window of our penthouse, watching the lights flicker across the city. No more hiding. No more waiting to be loved by people who only knew how to love conditionally. For the first time in my life, I felt whole, without needing their permission. A week passed. Then 2. No more baby shower texts. No more dinner invitations. No more backhanded comments wrapped in sugary politeness. Just silence. The same silence they used to punish me with. But now it was peace. I finally had peace. Until one afternoon, as I locked up the office, I found Emma waiting by my car. Alone. No makeup, no filters, no curated perfection. Just my sister, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I stopped. How'd you find me?
Dad, she said.
He's been quieter. He doesn't know how to fix things with you. I'm not broken, I said calmly. I don't need fixing. She lowered her head. I know. I just needed to see you. Not to ask for anything.
Just to say it.
Out loud. I didn't speak. She took a breath. I was cruel. I was jealous. Of your strength. I thought if I laughed first, maybe no one would see how much I hated feeling less than you. I blinked. She looked up. But I always was. Less than you. You had guts. You walked away. You made something real. And I hid behind parties and fake compliments. I crossed my arms. So, what do you want now? Forgiveness? She shook her head.
No.
Just to say thank you. That caught me off guard. For what? For still choosing kindness. For giving the house to my baby. For not slamming the door the way I deserved. I watched her for a moment. Her voice didn't tremble for effect. Her eyes didn't water for pity. This time, it felt honest. I exhaled slowly. I didn't do it for you. I did it because the child deserves better than we got. She nodded, lips trembling, then turned to walk away. And maybe that's what healing looks like. Not hugs. Not dramatic reconciliations. Just truth.
Raw.
Quiet. Undeniable. That night, I came home to Ethan already pouring wine. He smiled when he saw me. You okay? Yeah, I said. I think I finally let go. Of them? I looked around our home, our life, and smiled.
No.
Of needing them.
He reached for my hand.
And as I leaned into him, I realized the girl who once sat at a family table swallowing her shame was gone. In her place stood a woman. Whole. Unapologetic. And finally free. My name is Elena Parker, and I was 26 years old when I walked across the stage to collect my medical degree, a moment I had dreamed of since I was 9. But I never expected the very hands that once held me steady through childhood to be the same ones that would destroy everything I built. I didn't hear my name being announced. Not fully. I heard the crowd clapping, my classmates cheering for each other. But inside, everything was blurry. I was too nervous. My palms were sweating, my gown stuck to the backs of my knees, and my eyes darted to the front row where I knew my family sat. I scanned for my mom's tearful smile, my dad's proud nod, but what I got instead was cold. Before we begin, Drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. My father, Gerald Parker, sat stiff with arms crossed, his expression unreadable. My mother, Lillian, gave a polite clap but didn't even rise for me. And then there was my younger brother, Dylan, his face blank, jaw tight. It didn't make sense. Until I reached them. They didn't hug me. No, we're proud of you. No flowers. No photos. Instead, my father reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the folder, the one that held the physical copy of my MD certificate, freshly signed and sealed by the university president.
Dad.
I asked, my smile faltering. He looked at me with disgust. So proud of yourself, huh? His voice was low, but sharp enough to cut bone. Dubbage, what do you mean? Then he said the words I'll never forget. Your brother didn't pass. You think you deserve to walk out of here with this, while he failed.
What?
That's not, Dad. This has nothing to do with Dylan. I studied, I worked.
Rip.
The sound was like thunder in my ears. Right in front of everyone, he tore my degree in half, then again. The edges fluttered like dying leaves. And then he dropped the pieces at my feet. People turned. Students, parents, professors all staring. Someone gasped. I stood there frozen. It was like being punched without ever being touched. My mother leaned in and whispered through clenched teeth, "You're selfish, Elena. You've always been selfish. Your brother needed more attention. You should have stepped aside." I blinked at her. You think I should have failed so he could pass? You'll serve your brother now, she said. That's your new purpose. That's what family does. We didn't go to dinner. We didn't take pictures. They walked out of the building like nothing happened. And I stood there, surrounded by people I didn't know, holding the shreds of a life I built for nearly a decade. I should have cried. I should have screamed. But I didn't. I picked up the pieces. And I smiled. Because that moment, right there, that was the start of the storm they never saw coming. 2 weeks later, I moved out. Quietly. No fights. No goodbyes. I packed my scrubs, books, and saved internship paperwork into the back seat of my 2009 Honda Civic and drove straight out of Baton Rouge. I didn't leave a note. They didn't even text. They thought I'd come back. They thought they had broken me. But I wasn't just leaving. I was becoming something else. Chicago, Illinois, ER residency year 1. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their praise. I got accepted into Grantwood Medical Center, one of the busiest trauma hospitals in Chicago, on the strength of my records alone. The chief of residency, Dr. Kendra Hawthorne, looked me straight in the eyes during the interview and said, "You've got grit. I like grit." And for the first time in my life, someone saw me for me, not my last name. Not for being Dylan's older sister. Not for being the daughter of a wealthy tax lawyer and a socialite mother. Just me. I worked 16-hour shifts. I studied during the 30-minute breaks we were lucky to get. I slept on a cot in the on-call room, ate whatever snacks were left in the vending machine, and stitched gunshot wounds at 3 a.m. with hands that never once stopped shaking. But I never complained, because every drop of sweat was a step farther away from the ashes they left me in. Back home, a whole different story. Unbeknownst to me, Dylan had dropped out. After failing 2 semesters in a row and blaming me for being the golden child, he spiraled. My parents dumped all their savings into getting him into private mentorships, online programs, and even bribing university board members. But Dylan didn't want to study. He wanted what I earned, without the pain. And when they realized they couldn't buy a medical degree, they turned to what they knew best: shame and silence. They told extended family I abandoned them. They told neighbors I was mentally unstable. They even told Dylan's new girlfriend I was a toxic presence who'd cut herself off. But I knew the truth. And so did the few people who'd ever truly known me. The turning point. It happened on a Wednesday night. A man in his late 30s had come in with a severe abdominal wound, stabbed twice in the lower left quadrant. I was assigned lead under Dr. Hawthorne's guidance. The operation was successful, and the man survived. When he woke up, he looked at me and whispered, You saved me. It was the first time I'd ever been told that directly. And it hit me so hard I had to step out into the hallway and breathe. No one could take that away. Not a torn paper. Not a father's hate. Not a brother's jealousy. Not a mother's silence. I saved a life. That night, I decided I'd never answer to their version of me again. But life wasn't done testing me. Because 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. "Elena Parker?" the voice asked. "Yes. This is Samantha Willis from Pine Hill Senior Law Center. Your parents are being sued." My blood ran cold.
What?
"Why are you calling me? You've been listed as a co-owner of a trust fund account they illegally accessed." "What? I never signed anything." "Yes, and that's exactly why we need your statement." I sat down slowly. My stomach twisted. They forged my name. They used my identity, my signature, to steal from the very trust account my grandmother had left for my future medical education. I couldn't feel my legs. They had stolen from my future. Even when I was gone. That was the moment something dark inside me rose.
Cold.
Calculating.
Sharp.
No more silence. They were about to find out exactly who they raised. I barely slept that night. I sat on the edge of my twin bed in the residency housing unit, staring at the screen as I reread the legal documents the attorney had emailed me. My parents had accessed my educational trust, funds my grandmother had set aside specifically for my medical future, and siphoned off nearly $60,000 over 4 years. Quietly, without telling me, all forged under my name. I felt sick. My hands trembled, not because of the money, but because after everything, after tearing my degree, after calling me selfish, after dumping their disappointment on me, they still found a way to take from me. And now I could be in legal trouble if I didn't clear my name. I called Samantha the next morning. My voice was steady, though my chest was tight. "I'll cooperate fully," I told her. "Every document you need, every form, every statement, I'll send it." "And if we need you to testify?" she asked gently. I didn't hesitate. "I'll be there." I wasn't afraid anymore. I was furious. During my lunch breaks, I filed paperwork. After shifts, I compiled every email, bank transaction, and scanned signature I could find that proved my innocence. And somewhere in the madness of hospital life and legal prep, I realized something chilling. They'd never thought I'd make it. They thought I'd fail, crawl back, apologize. Instead, I was building a case, and they had no idea what was coming. Weeks passed. I threw myself deeper into work. I saved a child who nearly drowned, helped a mother deliver twins during a blackout, resuscitated a man who coded right in front of me. Every life I touched added another layer to the woman I was becoming, and every small win made my parents' cruelty feel smaller. Until one day, as I was changing in the locker room after a double shift, I saw an email on my phone with a name I hadn't read in years. Subject: "I'm sorry." From Dylan Parker. I just stared at it. My thumb hovered above the screen. I didn't know if I wanted to throw the phone or read every word. Eventually, I opened it. "Elena, Mom and Dad are falling apart. Dad had a mild stroke last week. He didn't want you to know. I know what they did. I didn't stop them. I didn't speak up. I was jealous. I failed, and I hated how easily you succeeded. But now they need help. We all do. Please, come home." I read it 3 times. Not once did he ask how I was. Not once did he say, "I'm proud of you." They needed help. That was the only reason he reached out. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the daughter who would drop everything and drive home with tears in her eyes. I was Elena Parker, MD, and I was about to walk into court with enough evidence to bury their lies. Court day arrived. I flew back to Baton Rouge. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I walked into that courtroom wearing a charcoal gray suit, minimal makeup, and the same quiet confidence I'd learned in emergency rooms and operating theaters. My parents were already seated. My mom's hair was perfect, her lips pressed tight. My father sat in a wheelchair, looking smaller than I remembered, but the coldness in his eyes hadn't aged a day. Dylan was there too, slouched in the corner. avoiding my gaze. When the judge asked me to step forward, I did without hesitation. I didn't authorize those withdrawals, I said. I have no knowledge of this paperwork. These are not my signatures. And here are the originals to prove it. My voice didn't shake. My hand didn't tremble. I wasn't emotional. I was factual, unshakable. And when the lawyer for the other side tried to imply that I was just a bitter daughter seeking revenge, I looked him dead in the eye and said, if protecting my name and my future is considered revenge, then yes. I guess I am. The judge ruled in my favor. My parents were ordered to repay the full amount, plus fines. Their accounts were temporarily frozen. And more than that, they were exposed. To the court, to the community, to the very people they lied to. Afterward, I walked out alone. The sunlight hit my face. The air smelled different. I thought they might chase me, call out, apologize. But there was nothing. Until I heard the footsteps. It was Dylan. He jogged to catch up with me in the parking lot, his voice hesitant. Elena, wait. I turned. What? I didn't know they forged your signature. I thought they just, I don't know, took the money quietly. You didn't ask. You didn't care. He rubbed his face, ashamed. I don't know what to say. You've changed. I had to, I replied. No one else protected me. I had to become my own shield. He stared at me for a long time, then said, I wish I'd been more like you. And for a moment, just a brief flicker, I saw the boy I grew up with. The brother I used to protect. The one who wasn't twisted by resentment. But I couldn't go back. I couldn't pretend. I hope you figured out, Dylan, I said softly. But I'm done carrying this family's weight. I got into my rental car and drove off. Not with triumph. Not with revenge pumping through my veins. Just peace. Real, earned, quiet peace. But life wasn't quite finished rewriting the script yet. Because exactly 3 months later, I received an unexpected letter. From my grandmother's estate lawyer. My breath caught as I read it. Apparently, there was another fund. One my grandmother had created years before her death. One she never told my parents about, because she feared they'd try to control it too. It had matured into a significant amount, and I was the sole beneficiary. There was only one condition, that I use it to help others.
Not them.
Not the family that broke me, but people who needed saving, like I once did. I smiled. Not because of the money, but because in the end, someone had believed in me all along. Not because I was a daughter or a sister, but because I was me. And now, I had the power to become what they never imagined. Unstoppable. I didn't tell anyone about the inheritance. Not my co-residents. Not my mentor. Not even my closest friend in Chicago, Kelsey. It wasn't because I didn't trust them. It was because I knew the moment I shared it, the story would become about the money. But this wasn't about money. It was about freedom. That letter from my grandmother's lawyer changed everything. The fund wasn't just generous, it was life-changing. Enough to pay off every cent of my student loans, buy a small condo, and still have plenty left to invest. But what stayed with me more than the number was the final line in the letter. Use it to help others like you. Those who are overlooked, underestimated, and unheard. It was like she knew what was coming before anyone else did. She knew they'd try to tear me down. She knew they'd fail. So I made a plan. Step 1. I took a week off. First vacation in 3 years. Step 2. I flew to Baton Rouge again. Quietly. Not to visit them, but to visit her. My grandmother's old house, now empty, abandoned, but somehow still holding the smell of lemon polish and jasmine tea. The lawn was overgrown. The porch creaked. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt home in a way I never had at my parents' mansion. I stood there for a long time. And then I called a contractor. I didn't tell them the whole story, just that I wanted to restore it, make it into something new. A place for girls like me, medical students with no support, teen moms trying to finish school, young women with potential, but no one to back them. I was going to build a safe house, a stepping stone, a real-life exit door for women stuck in situations like mine. The first of many. But of course, word got out. I hadn't been in town 2 days before I saw my mother. She showed up outside the house, arms crossed, sunglasses on, lips tight. "Elena," she said like it was a formality, like I was some distant cousin. I didn't invite her in. She looked around unimpressed. "So, this is what you're doing now? Turning her home into what? A shelter?" I didn't answer. She took a step closer. "Do you think this makes you noble? After what you've done to this family?" I stayed silent. "You humiliated your father. You turned on your brother. You always thought you were better than us." That's when I finally spoke.
Calm. Cold.
Direct.
No.
"I just refuse to be used by you any longer." She blinked. "You stole from me," I added. "Lied to me. You didn't even flinch when he ripped up my degree. That was my whole life." Her face twitched, like I'd hit a nerve. "I came here to offer peace," she said stiffly. "But clearly, you're still bitter." I smiled. "Not bitter. Just done." Then I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had finally shut them out for good. And it felt damn good. The safe house opened 6 months later. We named it the Magnolia Project, a tribute to my grandmother who used to say, "Magnolias bloom even in hard soil." The first 2 girls we helped were nothing like me on the outside. One was 17, kicked out by her stepfather for wanting to study nursing. The other was a single mom escaping an abusive relationship, trying to finish her GED. But they both carried the same weight I once did, the ache of being unwanted, unprotected, underestimated. We gave them beds, food, and quiet. A therapist came weekly. A career counselor volunteered on Saturdays. I taught them CPR and anatomy basics on Sundays. I'd never felt more alive. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from a local reporter named Marla Jennings. She wanted to cover the project. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want attention. I just wanted impact. But then I remembered what my parents always feared most: exposure. So, I agreed. The article dropped that weekend. "Doctor turns inheritance into refuge for forgotten girls, the Magnolia story." It went viral locally. Donations poured in. Volunteers showed up. And so did the whispers. Because the article didn't shy away from the truth. It mentioned my degree being destroyed. The forged documents. The lawsuit. All of it. Suddenly, people in Baton Rouge started looking at my family differently. I didn't care for revenge, but I did care for truth. And then one morning, while organizing medicine cabinets in the clinic wing, I heard footsteps on the porch.
Dylan.
He looked different. Skinnier. Tired. His eyes bloodshot. "Elena," he said, barely audible. "I need help." I stood still. No anger. No welcome. Just waiting. He ran a hand through his hair. "I messed up. Bad. I tried getting into this business program Mom paid for. Dropped out. Took some money from a friend. He's threatening to sue. I don't have anyone else." My stomach turned. This was the same brother who stood silent as my life was torn apart, who watched me pack, leave, and disappear without lifting a finger. Now he needed saving? I didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Then I asked, "Why are you here, Dylan?" "Really?" Because I know you help people now." "I help people who try," I said coldly. "Do you want help or do you want a shortcut?" He said nothing, just lowered his head. "I'm not your lifeboat," I added. "But there's a couch inside. There's food in the fridge. And a job to be done if you're willing to work."
He stared at me.
And for the first time in years, he whispered, "I'll earn it." I didn't fully trust him. But I gave him the same chance I gave strangers. Because kindness wasn't weakness. And boundaries weren't cruelty. Dylan stayed. At first, it was rough. He showed up late to shifts, struggled to keep up with the work, and his old habits crept in like shadows: anger, excuses, blame. But slowly, something changed. One evening, a girl came into the safe house frantic. Her name was Maya, 16, pregnant, and running from a violent boyfriend. She was terrified, barely able to speak. Dylan was the first to calm her down. He sat beside her, offering a steady hand. I watched from the doorway. He wasn't perfect. Far from it. But in that moment, he was real. Present. Caring. Over the next months, Dylan worked harder than I ever expected. He took classes at the community college nearby, started volunteering with me at clinics, and showed up early every day. It wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about changing himself. Then, out of nowhere, my parents came back into town. Their faces were lined with regret, or at least, that's what they wanted everyone to believe. They showed up at the Magnolia Project's fundraising gala. The room went silent when they entered. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I stood near the podium, watching as my mother approached. "Elena," she said, voice soft but strained. "We were wrong. About everything. We want to make amends." My father's eyes were downcast, the pride gone. I looked at them both and said, "This isn't about forgiveness. It's about accountability. If you want to help, you'll prove it by supporting this place. Not words." They nodded. And then something unexpected happened. Dylan stepped forward. "Mom, Dad," he said firmly, "I'm working here now. You'll have to earn your place." They looked stunned. For once, the family wasn't centered on old roles or favoritism. It was about who showed up, who changed, who fought. That night, as the gala ended, I stood on the porch of the old house, now fully restored and bustling with life inside. I thought about everything I'd lost, about the torn degree, the lawsuits, the broken family. But more importantly, I thought about everything I'd gained: strength, purpose, and the power to rewrite my own story. A story where no one could break me, because I was no longer the girl who needed saving. I was the woman who saved others.